Alrighty guys, good afternoon to you all here. Sorry I'm making this video a little bit late. Ended up sleeping over just a little bit this morning. Kids getting ready to go back to school next week, so we're trying to get well rested up because 6 a.m. morning start times are going to start back again this week. So here's your video for today. We got a lot to talk about severe weather-wise, tropic-wise, pattern-wise. Really going to keep most of this video on the tropics today. We have some pretty decent updates to give you guys on what is potentially going to, or more than likely going to become our next hurricane, our first hurricane of the Atlantic season here. I want to start out with the flooding threat that we had last night. We have had over 12 inches of rain last night up here into southern Wisconsin, specifically the Milwaukee area. Just ridiculous reports of high water rescues ongoing, all of this just craziness over there. So if you are over there, we were covering that a little bit last night, kind of getting people ready to go for the flooding threat over there. Definitely didn't expect 12 inches of rain to happen, but sometimes when you get these MCSs that move through or these stalled out surface boundaries, you can get lots of heavy rain that accumulate. And that moderate risk was in place yesterday and is still in place today for significant flooding. But we did see just really, really ridiculous rainfall rates yesterday out of that system last night. And there still is rainfall ongoing up there, and there will be more storms later on this afternoon. We'll talk about that here in just a minute. But here's that big old blob of convection from last night. I want you guys to also see something steering to the tropics here before we get into our United States pattern here. I want you guys to see on the bottom of your screen down here, this is that blob of convection that's been out over the Bahamas pretty much all of last week here, or all of this past week, and the European ensembles were trying to hint at some type of tropical depression development. Right now, the National Hurricane Center doesn't have anything on this. We are watching it closely just in case something were to sneak up here, but it is a pretty decent MCS just sitting off the coast of western Florida there, and we've had some pretty also ridiculous rainfall rates and higher rainfall totals in portions of Florida from that blob that moved overnight last night. So we're going to keep you guys updated on that. If anything were to change with that, we'll do a video, we'll talk about it, but right now that should just be hanging off the coast of Florida and then eventually move north, giving us some rainfall across the southeast going into next week. But tropical downpours are going to be much the story for the southeast today and tomorrow, as we see that disturbance kind of just sitting there, and we'll start to monitor Invest 97L and what it's going to become here in just a few minutes. And speaking of 97L, we'll go ahead and pull that up here so you guys can see that. 97L looking very healthy this morning. The National Hurricane Center now has this at a 90% chance of developing in the next 7 days and a 50% chance here of developing in the next 2 days. And right now, that center of circulation just to the east here of the island here, of the Cape Verde Islands, will potentially either see this go to the north here or through the islands. It's going to encounter some cooler water temperatures over the next couple days here that'll keep it kind of at bay. And then once it gets past those cooler water temperatures as it tracks toward the Leeward Islands or north of those areas there, we'll see some rapid strengthening happening. And we're still in the unknown of what's going to happen with this system here. A lot of the European and GFS ensembles starting to kind of shift west overnight last night through this morning. We'll see if that trend stays. We're really not going to have any idea on what's going to happen with this, where it's going to go, if it's going to come to the United States or if it's going to go out to sea until later on at the end of this week, really more towards the Wednesday, Thursday timeframe. But each day we get closer to this, we're going to get more information. My hope is we still get a fish storm, but we still have to be serious. We still have to talk about this because, as we've seen in recent events over the last couple of years, we've seen storms that were supposed to be quote unquote fish storms, and they'll end up moving their way to the United States, kind of defying high pressure systems and doing their own thing. So it's all dependent on the track of this, how it goes west, how it goes north. We'll kind of get into all that over the next couple of days. We'll have live streams each day with you guys. We'll have videos each day talking about it. But right now, looking very, very healthy this morning. Could have a shot at becoming a tropical depression here in the next 2 days. So we more than likely will have our first hurricane advisory cone in our first our first cone here in the next day or two here. So that'll kind of give us an idea of what's going to happen. You can see the latest 2 o'clock advisory here this afternoon. We still got that little blob of convection up here, 96L, that's going to be moving out to sea here. That's still not going to have a chance at developing. So I'm going to turn that off so we can focus on our red blob here. And you can see the National Hurricane Center basically saying we're going to get a hurricane or a tropical system out of this here in the next 7 days here. 90% chance here, highest risk zone development area all year so far this year, with a 50% chance in the next 48 hours. So that window is there for this to become a named storm in the next 48 hours here. I would expect by tomorrow or by Tuesday. We're looking at Tropical Storm Aaron more than likely here, as it's going to be working its way across. Now, I mentioned there's some cooler water temperatures here off the west side of the islands here. Once this gets past that, we'll start to see this rapidly strengthen. Some of the model runs, some of the hurricane model runs, you guys will probably see them on social media. The Half-Ass B is one of them. HAFASB is what it's called. Is simulating a Cat 5. So it's not out of the question that we get a major hurricane. I think that's still a little bit uncertain right now on what's going to happen given the track and where this is going to go and all of the time out here in front of this to watch this. But some of our model guidance is also still shifting this further down to the southwest. And the further south and west that this track stays, or that this system stays, the better chance we have of this either going towards Florida or going toward the east coast. The more northern track and central track it were to take, we could see this maybe becoming a fish storm or getting close to the east coast and giving us some rip current issues and all of that. But all of that's not going to be figured out out, guys, until later at the end of this coming up week here. We've still got a lot of time to figure this out, and I know people want answers. You guys, you're going to have to be patient. We're going to have to wait here until we get each day progressively getting updates here, but I think we'll start to have some more clarity on this, especially as this progresses this week underneath of our ridge. We'll see if it gets yanked to the north or if it gets pulled to the south, or it goes to the south. So if you are on the East Coast, once again, I mentioned this yesterday in my video, you need to be prepared here for a tropical system or hurricane just in case something were to happen here. You always need to be prepared. It's that time of the year, regardless of it being August, going into September, going into October for hurricane season. You need to be weather aware depending on where this tracks. And I know this may look like it's going to go out to sea right now, but it doesn't mean that that's what's going to happen here. And we'll actually go ahead and show the ensembles here of what we've got. This is the latest GEFS ensembles from this morning. And you can see overnight last night, we had a little bit of a shift west. A lot of the models still agree with an out to sea storm, but that's not set in stone yet. We're over 7 days out, so a lot of this uncertainty still going to be hanging in the balance here. We know pretty confidently where this is going to go up to about day 5. It's just after that, does it hang south? Does it go north? Does it go west here? Got a lot of things to figure out here, but some of the models kind of signaling a little bit of a west shift here. And I believe the European ensembles overnight last night as well, a little bit more of a westerly shift. So a lot of uncertainty, guys, with Invest 97L and what will more than likely become Tropical Storm Aaron here in the next 48 to 72 hours. So we'll keep you guys updated with that. As always, we'll have some live streams tonight. We'll have hopefully some more information tonight as we get some new runs in. But like I said, looking at either a tropical depression here between today and tomorrow, and then a tropical storm in the next 48 to 72 hours. Now, I want to go and talk about severe weather. We do have our severe weather set up for today. This is the risk zone analysis that I have made here for this afternoon. Here we have the chance for wind and hail and a brief isolated tornado threat up toward the Rockies there, off the plains there, Colorado getting into Kansas. Another flooding threat also possible today. We'll talk about that here again in just a minute as well. But we see the SPC outlook for today is a high-end slight risk, is where the highest risk zone is at today. Probabilities I've given for watches today: low-end tornado watch probabilities, but a higher end watch severe weather or severe thunderstorm watch probability, given this is a wind and a hail threat. Typically that's what we see when we get those probabilities out there. And then we are looking at tornadoes are low to medium today. I have it in a slight category just because if we get any outflow boundaries or anything, we could see a little bit more of an elevated risk in some areas, even though SPC's only got a 2% out there. We've also got the threat for large hail today, in excess of 1 to 2 inches in diameter, damaging winds up to 70 miles per hour, and that fluttering threat is in the moderate stage, and I'll talk about why that is here in just a minute here, with our risk zone being pulled up to the plains and all the way extended up into eastern Wisconsin and into the middle and northern portions of the Ohio River Valley. Now, here is our actual risk zone map for today. You can see the Storm Prediction Center does have that level 2 slight risk from Denver, Colorado, back down into New Mexico, up toward northwestern portions of the Panhandle of Oklahoma and southwestern Kansas, with a marginal risk outside of that that extends all the way up here through the plains, through Kansas City, Missouri, back up into Milwaukee and outside of Green Bay. We'll be watching for the threat of isolated damaging winds and hail once again, with another little marginal risk back down here into Tucson area, Arizona here. We'll have the threat for some hail and some wind later on this afternoon as we kind of start to see the showers in the monsoon season kind of ramp up there. Tornado percentage today is 2%. This goes from Woodward, Oklahoma, back through Liberal, Kansas, Garden City, Kansas, up into Pueblo and Denver, Colorado, and then the wind threat at 15 and 5% for winds up to 70. And then the hail threat at 15 and 5% for hail up to 1 to 2 inches in diameter. And then we get to tomorrow, and we're going to start to see the severe weather downtrend as we go through at least Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday here. We should see a little bit of severe weather up here into the high plains, marginal risk tomorrow, and then a marginal risk back down here into West Texas, eastern New Mexico for wind and hail in both areas. And then we get to the day 3 outlook, and we're not expecting anything as of right now. We'll be seeing a little bit of a break as we see some troughing kind of figure itself out or out of the way here. We're going to really start to see a heat wave set up again across the United States, and we're going to talk about that here in just a minute on the maps, on the global maps, but I wanted to give you guys an update on that here. We could see a pretty decent heat wave as we go across the next couple of weeks here into the month of August, typically as we get ready to transition into fall, as we go into September and October. So another heat wave on tap for this week. Above average temperatures expected for most of the United States. If you're on the West Coast, we'll see that troughing setup, so a little bit cooler than average, and we'll talk about what that looks like here in just a minute. And I want to talk as well about WPC here and what the flooding risk is for today, and we do have another moderate risk for flash flooding here across northern Oklahoma, southern Kansas, Wichita, back down here into western portions of Missouri, with a slight risk outside of that as far as Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So if you're up in Milwaukee today, continuing to see the flooding, the threat for heavy rainfall through this afternoon to tonight. We're also going to be watching for the flooding threat along the East Coast here as well, southeast coastline. As tropical downpours commence here, we could see casually about 1 to 3 inches of rain widespread-wise, and then locally 3 to 6, maybe some higher pockets than that, and then a small marginal risk outside of that down here into the monsoon areas across Arizona and portions of New Mexico and West Texas. We'll keep you guys updated with that there. As always, make sure you turn around, don't drown, don't drive through flooded roadways, even if you think that those roadways are not covered in water. Don't attempt it, because then you get yourself put in a situation, and then you get put in a high water rescue mode, and that's not what we want to see happen. So here's the timeline for today's storms here. We'll see these storms initiating later on this afternoon, as always, around 3 to 4 o'clock Central Time, coming off the Rockies. Damaging winds and large hail will be the main threat, with a couple of brief, weak tornadoes. We start to see convection really initiate again here, with the threat for heavy rainfall across northern Oklahoma, southeast Kansas, Missouri. This will transition through about 5 o'clock this afternoon through most of the overnight hours, as we see that complex of storms work its way from Kansas and Oklahoma back eastward again. So lots of rainfall forecasted over that moderate risk zone area for the next, I would really say, 12 to 18, 24 hours here, and we'll keep you guys updated on that. And here is those local QPF totals here that we are expecting over the next, really 24 hours here. Some pretty decent pockets of rain. Remember, these are estimated totals. They're not going to be spot on. They could be higher, could be lower, but right now, 1 to 3 inches of rainfall widespread wise, with about 3 to 5 inches of some higher pockets of 6 to 8, maybe even some areas higher than that. They're in those yellow shaded areas there in Kansas, as well as eastern Kansas and central Kansas. Could see some higher pockets there. So that's something we're watching out for very, very closely. We'll take a look up here again at the Midwest, and we'll see the rainfall totals to the next little bit of time. And right now, doesn't look to be too much of an issue. About 1 to 3 inches of rainfall could fall still this afternoon across Wisconsin, northern Illinois, and portions of eastern Iowa, but still any additional rainfall is going to cause problems with the flooding threat that's already down there. So we ended up picking over 12 inches of rain up over in Milwaukee, Wisconsin last night, just within a couple hours. So that's when you get those rainfall rates of about 1 to 3 inches per hour. And I talked about that yesterday afternoon when we did our video update, that was more than likely going to happen, and that did verify. So something that we continue to watch for you guys is that flooding threat. If you guys ever have pictures or anything you want to send in, you guys can send those into our Facebook page. That is linked in my bio below the video, and you guys can update us on any of those situations that are going on out there as well. We appreciate that very, very much from you guys. Also, let's take a look at our global pattern here, just briefly on what we're going to be seeing through much of the week, and you can clearly see the trough that is in place right now. This will be sweeping through. It's a stalled out trough here, mostly with a surface low that was, or not a surface low, but a surface front that's been kind of sitting here hanging out and giving us the flood threat that we've been seeing the last 48 hours here. That's going to eventually move out later on this afternoon. You can clearly see, as we go into Monday and Tuesday here, another little shot at some severe weather going into Monday and Tuesday across Minnesota, the Dakotas, Wisconsin. I don't expect too much severe weather with that here. We'll start to see high pressure dominate over the west coast here, as well as more of a isolated thunderstorm pattern across the Ohio River Valley, the southern plains, the southeast. I don't expect too much of an issue with that. And then we get towards the end of the week here, middle of the end of the week, and it looks like we're going to see another cutoff low, or a stronger low up in Canada that could give us some shear, some troughing shear across the northern high plains here. And what that could mean for us is some more damaging wind threats, the hail threat, those MCSKs going into Thursday, going into Friday. So we'll be watching this, but a huge ridge dominating underneath. And this is where that heat dome is going to be locked in for much of the end of the week here. We'll see high pressure dominating here, allowing temperatures to be in the 90s with dew points pushing the 60s and 70s again, which means those heat indexes are going to go up. So make sure you guys watch how long you're outside for drink water. Make sure the pets are not outside too long. We'll be watching that heat wave. I don't think it's going to be anything like we saw a couple weeks ago with that triple-digit heat wave, but it's still going to be gross and hot as we go through the week here, so just be mindful of that. And then eventually that ridge will start to shift a little bit further to the west here. The GFS model is also trying to give us a little tropical system late next week. We'll watch this just because it's the only model run that's showing it. We'll keep you guys updated on that. But going into the weekend, we should start to see a new pattern set up. And this is what I want to watch as we go toward the end of August here. A huge, huge high pressure ridge setting up. And this is really going to limit most severe weather across the United States, other than some spots up toward the high plains here. A just dominant high pressure going into the 3rd and 4th week of August here. We'll see if this continues to trend or if this verifies. But if this does, it'll probably make it the hottest end of the month that we've seen so far this month, as is in the month of August. So we'll keep you guys updated with that. And then after that, models are in la la land over 200 hours out, basically showing more tropical waves. And then we get into this ridiculous northwesterly flowing event. We'll talk more about this in the future. If that does in fact become a trend here, we could see some more severe weather ramp up toward the end of the month. So that's what I've got for you guys over the next couple days here. We will keep you guys updated on the tropics. I want to know as much as you guys want to know. It's how it works. That is, when you get these waves off the coast of Africa, we typically have to watch and update and update and update. Hopefully we get a fish storm. That's the best thing that could come out of this. But we're going to keep you guys updated for all simulations, all updates, and other than that, have a wonderful Sunday, be safe, and we'll see you guys in the next one.